A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is the second Majlis in our Ashra Majlis series, recited by Moulana Syed, Safi, Haider, and from New Jersey. The topic for the Majalis tonight is going to be on the origins of the Shi'ism. Without further ado, I'd like to invite the Salam reciter, Brother Misam Jafri. Bawaz Balan Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Farjil Fajr.
Hussain al-Gharib al-Gharib al-Hussain Hussain al-Shahid al-Shahid al-Hussain جو بھی نے دیکھا شہیدوں کا نوحہ تھا اس کی زبان پر، ابد کس طرح اس کے غم کا بیان ہو، ہمیں بھی سعادت ہو نصرت کی حاصل، خدا را ظہور امام زمان ہو، حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین، حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین، محمد آل
Jazakallah. Now I'd like to invite the Marcia reciter, Brother Rahil. Bawaz Balan Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
باری دیگر سلوات اہل عزا کے فریاد ہو کہ فاطمہ کی بستی اجڑی، فریاد ہو کہ فاطمہ کی بستی اجڑی، آبادی کرب و بلا کے صلوات محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ فاتحہ. مظلوم کے ماتم کے دن آئے پھر آئی قیامت کے محرم کے دن آئے اور پھر آئی قیامت کے محرم کے دن آئے پھر فصل عزائے شہ عالم کے دن آئے پھر غم سے بھڑکنے لگی آتش جگروں میں پھر تعزیے رکھے گئے شیعوں کے گھر میں اور پھر تعزیے رکھے گئے شیعوں کے گھر میں لاکھوں سے 72 کی لڑائی کے یہ دن ہے اور سادات سے آفت کی تباہی کہ یہ دن ہے زینب سے برا
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before I introduce the speaker, just want to make a few quick announcements. As you know, the English Majalis program start time is 6:15 p.m. and it'll end before Maghrib Salat time. After that, after Maghrib Salat time, around 8:20, the Urdu Majlis will be broadcasted online. Also, there's on-site for the Urdu Majlis as well, 36 men and 36 women, 72 people total, which requires pre-registration online on IC Husaini's website. This will continue until further guidelines are received for abiding by CDC requirements. Just a few quick notes besides that. On 9th of Muharram and 10th of Muharram, there will be drive-through tabarruk that's going to be offered, as well as ziyarats. The zari and will be outside for people to view from their cars and also pick up tabarruk. On Ashra on 10th Muharram, the tabarruk will be during the Fakhr Shikni time. One other announcement for the Noha Khani tonight, we have a special reciter from the UK, Brother Imran Datu. He will be reciting an English Noha after the speech. Without further ado, I would like to invite the speaker, the alim for tonight, Moulana Syed Safi Haider. Bawaz Balan Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وصلى اللهم على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. قال الله الحكيم في القرآن الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن من شيعته لإبراهيم صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The topic that I had chosen for the discussion of the first 5 days and nights of Muharram al-Haram is the origins of Shi'ism, and more specifically the origins of the aqaid of Shi'ism. And it is very important for us to note that we cannot take away the historical context of anything if we are to properly understand Islam or to properly understand any religion. I cannot understand how sacred the Talmud is to a Jewish person unless I understand the life of Moses. I cannot understand how significant is the word of God and Christianity unless I understand the historical context through which Jesus was raised. I cannot understand the nuzul of the Quran unless I understand the sha'an and nuzul of every verse of the Quran. I cannot understand what the Prophet said unless I understand it within the particular framework of what the Prophet said. And it is very important for us to note that the aqaid of the school of Ahlulbayt have all developed in a historical context. It is not that we say that there are only 5 aqaid and there is no other attribute to God that we believe as a part of our faith system. No. All the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the names, 1,000 plus, mentioned in Dua Joshan al-Saghir, all the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are a part of our belief system. And they are most beautiful of the names and attributes that one can give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or any creature for that matter. God is absolutely one. He is the incomparable. I should mention in some traditions, it would say the fact that we are attributing some of our words to God means that we are trying to put him under brackets, but then therefore God is not meant to be under brackets, so why are you even doing that? The reason is the human mind cannot comprehend the absolute beauty and the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not possible. He is absolutely one. We can't understand what absolutely one means. He is truth beyond par. We can't understand what truth beyond par means. He is the one, the reality. He is Adil. He is Rahman. He is Rahim. He is Nuru ala kulli nur. He is the Malik, Quddus. He is Rabb. He is all of these characteristics. But we say that the historical development of this aqa'id takes very much importance, because many of these discussions were not developed with other aspects of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are those who say, for example, and I'm not just talking about the Muslim world, some say that there is God. Obviously, atheists say there's no God. But then some say God has a physical body. And this has manifestations in Muslim kalam as well. We say God has no physical body. Some say God is pantheistic, anthropomorphic. We say God is neither pantheistic nor anthropomorphic. Yes, some say that there is God all around us. Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere, obviously. But that every atom is God. Every individual is God. In one of his Hussain Day lectures, Ayatollah Sayyid Aqil al-Gharawi mentioned that if every person is God, he was quoting Swami, who had said कि मुसलमान कहते हैं, Muslims say कि मोहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह, हम कहते हैं कि हर शख्स रसूलुल्लाह. So he said, if every human being was Rasulullah, that means Qatil and Maqtul are both Rasulullah. The killer and the killed and the murdered, they're both Rasulullah. That means Na'udhu Billah, Yazid and Imam Hussain. Of course, I'm not saying attributing Imam to anybody, Rasulullah to anybody after Rasulullah. And then Muawiyah and Abu Dhar and Salman and Ammar and Muawiyah and Hajjaj and the sons of Imam al-Hassan, who both the Banu al-Umayyah and Banu al-Abbas put in prison, they're both Rasulullah. How does that make sense? Of course it doesn't make sense. Within the Islamic context, we must understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the absolute one. He is absolute unity. He is the absolute creator. And there can be none beside him. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبِ فَأَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. And God is the east and the west. So wherever you go, you see the face of God. You see the face of God. God is everywhere. God is such that He is closer to us than our jugular veins. And He says, Ud'uni astajib lakum. Ask and I will answer. We go further in the Islamic history, and today I want to talk about the aspect of God, specifically His justice. What is the justice of God? What is justice in the first place? You see, many philosophers would have talked about what it means to be just. Plato has his own view. Kant has his own view. John Stuart Mill has his own view. Nietzsche has his own view. Aristotle has his own view. Derrida and all of these others, they have their own views on this subject. Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, all of them, they talk about the ideal society and the most perfect ruler. What I want to say, however, is that in theory everything is fine and good, because we could say God is absolutely just and leave it as that. But in the school of Ahlulbayt, we have a manifestation of the justice of God that is beyond parallel, and that is the wilayat and the imamate of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim. Recite salat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Therefore, we need to understand that justice of God is related directly to the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It is very important for us to note that what is God's justice? In the development of the discussion of the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our brothers and sisters in Islam, they have developed different views. The Asharites, to whom Sunnis are the modern day inheritors, they would say that we do not believe in free will. All we believe is in predestination. And therefore, we say that free will is complete hoax. There's no such thing. Another group known as the Mu'tazilite will say we believe in complete free will, and there's no predestination. The school of Ahlulbayt developed the idea that no, a path between the two paths. If I say complete predestination, that means Yazid was predestined to kill Imam Hussain. And therefore, if God wanted to, based off of that aspect, wanted to grant Yazid Jannah and Imam Hussain a'udhu billah hell, God's fine in doing that. No, that doesn't make sense. That is not justice. Similarly, there are certain things I cannot predetermine about myself. I cannot choose freely by myself. So a path between the two paths. But that's a good theory. Let's be honest. Let's be frank. Let's be honest. Let's be true. Let's be completely understanding of what we mean here. When I say that justice is an active reality that everybody needs to put into their life, determine about myself. The lives of the Anbiya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the lives of the awliya, the lives of the Imam, the lives of Fatima Zahra, the lives of those who lived with them or near them, the companions, the true companions of Rasulullah, and the companions of Imam Hussain, and those within the family of Ahlulbayt who were not at the level of Ismat al-Kubra, but by association of the Ma'asumeen, they reached the level of Ismat al-Sughra. Lady Zainab is at the position of Ismat al-Sughra. Ali Akbar, Ali Abbas, Ja'far al-Tayyar, all of these individuals are at the level of Ismat al-Sughra for their association with the Ma'asum. Now, we have proof that they were the ones who were the rightful individuals. And they were the ones who really understood what I just said, that the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the Imamate of Ali ibn Abi Talib is the greatest proof of the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. That is, no, we cannot deny that. When we say, as a part of the aqeedah, that Allah is just, Allah is just. He created man fil ardi khalifa, to do God's bidding in this earth, this world. Man was not created for man or jinn or eating or drinking or partying or whatever. Man is created for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what that means is that we are to embody all the aspects of the divine in every aspect of our life. That's what that means. We are to understand all the virtues and the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what that means. We are to understand that the embodiment of this idea that the man has to be an embodiment of all the characteristics of the divine is none other than the presence and the wujud of the Anbiya and the awliya and the Imams and Fatima Zahra and Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi alayhim and Abu Abdullah and Imam Hassan all the way to Imam Mahdi. Yes. Yes. That's very important for us to note. And we can never forget that. When I say, and I'm not just saying this because without any source, Hadith al-Kisa has many sha'n al-nuzul. It was revealed multiple times. It is amongst the most mutawatir hadith. Hadith of Ghadir al-Khum is one of the most mutawatir hadith. And Allama Amini has written multiple volumes on Ghadir, Kitab, wa Sunnah, wal Adab. Now, of course, when I say that Ali himself was a manifestation of the God, himself the manifestation of the characteristics of God in one person. The way God wants us to be a manifestation of Him in this world, He wants Ali, He gave us examples of the Ahlulbayt as a prime examples. Now, before I go on further to talk about the justice of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi salamu alayhim, we have to understand that there is a level. And Rasulullah said that if Ali was not alive, there would be nobody at the level of Fatima Zahra to which she could marry. Ali was not the example in this hadith. Fatima Zahra is the example, and Ali met that example. In another hadith they say, and this is quoted by Allama Hassan Zadeh Amali, Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh Amali, he is one of the highest ranking, if not the highest ranking Arif amongst our Mujtahideen and Maraji'. They say that, I have heard from multiple sources, that for more than the past decade he has been in his hospital bed in Tehran, and he is the successor not only to Imam Khomeini but also to Allama Tabatabai and Sayyid Ali Qadi Tabatabai and Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Rida Gulpagani. After them, he is considered to be the highest ranking Arif of our time. He quotes in his lectures a tradition that says, نحن يعني أئمة حجة الله عليكم وجدتنا فاطمة حجة الله علينا. That we, the Imams, are proof of Allah on you, and our mother Fatima is a proof of Allah on us. Why do I make this statement? Because you have individuals, and this tradition is mentioned in Sunni sources as well as Shia sources. The hadith is, he who dies without recognizing the Imam of the time dies the death of Jahiliyyah. He who dies without recognizing the Imam of the time dies the death of Jahiliyyah. If I don't recognize my Imam, I am not only Jahil and the ultimate Jahil, I am dying the death of Ayam Jahiliyyah, where they used to bury daughters alive and burn wives in Hind and worship fire in Iran or Fars at that time. Now, the question is, everybody or the majority of the Muslims that were present in Saqifa ended up doing bay'ah of Abu Bakr, except for the Ahlulbayt, Fatima Zahra, Husaini, Ali, Zainab, Kulthum, and a few companions. Yes. Now, Fadak has been stolen. Fatima Zahra goes to the Darbar or to the Masjid to argue for the case of Fadak being hers. The question is this, and then of course the incident of the door happens to Fatima Zahra. The question is this: if Fatima is Fatima, then saying this hadith, he who dies without recognition of the Imam of the time dies the death of the Jahiliyyah, goes for Fatima Zahra as well. If she herself did not do bay'ah, then the question to the Muslim world is, who is the Imam of Fatima Zahra? The fact that Fatima Zahra did not do bay'ah to the Khalifa is proof of the wilayat and the imamat and the khilafat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. A khilafat that was stolen from him. Obviously, khilafat or imamat is not something that can be stolen from the imam. We lost as a Muslim ummah the benefit and the blessings of having Imam Ali as the Khalifa, yes. But not having political power, first of all, political power was not something that the Aimma went after. Neither in Karbala or anything like that. They went after a reform of the Muslim community. But then the question is, if Fatima is refusing to give bay'ah to the Khalifa, Who is the Imam of Fatima Zahra? Who is the Imam of Fatima Zahra? Now, first Khalifa leaves this world, second Khalifa dies, third Khalifa is murdered. 3 times Imam Ali has divorced this world. 3 times. 3 times Amir al-Mu'mineen has divorced this world. And yet after the third Khalifa's assassination, they say that the Muslims came to realize that there was nobody better than Ali to lead them at that point. And the Muslims, they did the Bay'ah of Ali. And Imam Ali said, I divorced this world 3 times. When you divorce somebody 3 times, you cannot expect them back. You don't. Sharia doesn't allow for it. So Imam Ali says, if I've divorced this world 3 times, how can I accept it? This is not for me. I don't want it. They say no. And Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam is forced to accept the absolute true vote of the majority. Let me backtrack a little bit. Saqifa was an incident where the few who were Quraysh or the Muhajirin who were part of it won against the Ansar, even though the majority had accepted the Khilafat and the Imamate of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And they had argued the point that the Quraysh would be the Khalifa and the Ansar would be the Muhajir. When it comes to combining the Risalah and the Khilafah in one household, they would say that the Quraysh or the Arabs would never accept that, therefore we must separate it. This is in Tabari. When the first Khalifa dies and the second is chosen by the first, the second says that the election or the nomination of the first Khalifa was a mistake. When he dies and Uthman becomes Khalifa, then they say Uthman is elected by an assembly of certain individuals, most of them somehow associated with Uthman and Banu Umayyah, yes. Uthman ibn al-Affan is murdered 3 times. Imam Ali divorces the world 3 times. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman. And 3 times he divorces. Finally, somebody knocked the census into the Muslim world, saying that Ali is the best candidate. And in this life of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim, we find ultimate Irfan, ultimate Gnosticism, ultimate asceticism, ultimate love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ultimate. And this wilayah proves to us that Allah is the most just, that Allah is the most loving, that Allah is the most kind, that Allah is the most compassionate. Why? Because in this we see that Amir al-Mu'mineen was walking with Ibn Abbas at one point. He said Ibn Abbas, he had his shoes on, his slippers on, Imam Ali. Imam Ali says, he looks at one of his slippers or he picks it up and then he says to Ibn Abbas, what is this verse? This narration is quoted in Kitab al-Irshad by Shaykh al-Mufid. He says, what is this worth? He said, Maula, it's not worth anything. He says, no, it's worth a little bit more. He said, maybe 1, 2, 3 dirham, nothing. He says, this shoe is worth more to me than the whole Khilafah unless I can use the Khilafah and establish justice with it. This is that Ali who was so concentrated in his prayer that when he would pray and the arrow would be surgically removed from his foot when he was in prayer. He was so concentrated, no anesthesia, no nothing, just prayer. And he was fine with it. This is that Ali who trembles at the musalla. Yet when, and Muhsin Qira'ati narrates this in lessons from Quran, that when Imam Ali was Khalifa, one time he was about to go lead namaz. Imagine Khalifa al-Muslimin, imagine the president of a country about to go lead namaz at not only Ayn al-Waqt, the highest of the best of times, and it's Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Khalifa, and it is, that happens, what happens? A woman from Iran comes, from Khurasan province comes, and she says, Ya Ali, your governor this is Imam Ali is about to lead the prayer. He says, Ya Ali, your governor is too strict in collecting the taxes. Imam Ali stops everything. He's about to go lead the prayer. Thousands of individuals. He goes and he writes a letter of acquittal for that governor. And then he goes back to lead the prayer. This Imam Ali wrote to one of his governors, Malik al-Ashtar, the longest document present in Nahj al-Balagha. The epistle of Amir al-Mu'mineen to Malik al-Ashtar is the longest document in Nahj al-Balagha. And of course, we know certain aspects of it, but the whole thing, I mean, we like to talk about it saying that it was presented at the UN, but not knowing what the full depth and the analysis and the historical development of this charter of justice was. Why? Because we understand the one statement, your brethren are of two kinds, either they are your brethren in faith or you're equal in humanity, but that's about all we know about that letter. Imam Ali does not begin with that statement. He says to Malik al-Ashtar basically that I am endowing you, making sure you are the Khalif, making sure you are my governor. It is for you to implement the will of God, to seek nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He begins by saying, Malik, understand that the place I am sending to you was a place where there were many kingdoms before you, many governors, many Badshah or Fir'aun before you, and that people judged with them the way they had wanted to, and people would judge with you on that same example. They will hold you to that same level of scrutiny that they held their previous leaders. Don't think that you are the only one going to this land. This land has had thousands and thousands of generations of rulers. And people judge accordingly. Imam Ali gives him many different notes of advice. Seek ilm with the scholars. Try to work for the majority and not for the favor of a few. Try to look at the good and hide the faults of individuals. If you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hide your faults, look, the will of the majority rules in any society, and the slightest act of injustice will make sure that the majority goes against you. And not even the will of a few individuals who are powerful will be able to help you. Look at the nature of this letter. Imam Ali says that societies are of different types and sorts and categories. When we look at the different societies, we understand that if they implement this document of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that is a sure path to the implementation of justice. When we look at this statement, we see beauty in prose. But when a governor or a president or a statesman or a UN Secretary General looks at us and he sees the most beautiful values of human life being implemented in the will and the character and the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim. Now, when we talk about Imam Ali, we have to understand that Imam Ali was the embodiment of the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. And nobody can compare to Imam Ali. Not me, not you, nor anybody. Imam Ali was such that he would have only a few furniture, very little furniture in his house. Once would ask, Ya Ali, why do you have such little furniture in your house? He says, when a musafir goes on a journey, he tries to bring as little of what he has possible. I am a musafir, this is a journey. I am a musafir, this is a journey. I am going to God. I don't want to have much when I go to God. This way I can plead to God when I go to Him. Imam Ali alayhi salam was the embodiment of the nature of insan hay kamil, the absolutely perfect human beings. Now some people might say, isn't that a farce to say that a human being can be perfect? But we understand and we see the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the implementation of the absolute perfection of humanity was present in his life. When we look at the wujud of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we see the principles of humanity and justice and peace. Nobody could find fault with Imam Ali. Nobody. No Jew, Christian, Muslim. Nobody. Not even Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim who struck Imam Ali was able to find fault with him. Now I say, brothers and sisters, and I'm not just beginning musibah right now, I'm not beginning the Masa'ib right now, but there were 3 difficulties that occurred to Amir al-Mu'mineen that were far more difficult and harder for Imam Ali than being struck by the sword of Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim and by having the poison run through his veins for 3 days. The first was burying Fatima al-Zahra. And when Imam Ali was giving the ghusl and kafan to Fatima al-Zahra, that he screamed. And Salman afterwards says, Moulana, why did you scream? You are the conqueror of Khaybar and Khandaq. Why did you scream? He said, Salman, for the first time I saw the wounded ribcage of Fatima al-Zahra. I saw the ribcage of Fatima al-Zahra. The wound that killed her. The wound that she was hiding from me. That was the first difficulty. You know what the second difficulty was? The second hardship and difficulty was when all the tents had been burned. Everything was looted. The rug on which Imam Sajjad was laying was snatched from his back. Sakina's earrings were stolen. The chadars were looted. The hijab was looted. After gathering all the women and children under one group, Lady Zainab, at one time she says, Ya Ali, adrikni. That second difficulty was when Lady Zainab said, Ya Ali adrikni, Imam Ali came. That second difficulty was seeing his daughter Zainab without her veil. And the third difficulty was that when Lady Zainab was about to enter the palace of Yazid, she got frightened. Bibi Zainab घबरा गई थी. So Imam Sajjad says, on Zainab, she stopped. She says, Auntie Zainab, what's going on? What's wrong? She says, Oh Sajjad, my father told me once that Zainab, there will be a time where you will get worried. At that time, Zainab, wait for me. I will come. Lady Zainab, she said, I'm waiting for my father. And then she gets up and says, Sajjad, I see my father, Ya Ali adrikni, and she enters the palace of Yazid. Now, when we talk about Imam Ali, that was just a side note. This is not musibah yet. We have some time until that. His justice was such that his enemies hated him for it, and those who loved him for it. His valor was such that his enemies hated him for it, yet those who loved him for it. His peace and dignity and his character and his humanity and his humanism were such that those who hated him for it, but those who loved him wanted to die for it. When that happened, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam was such that nobody could find fault with him, yet they still hated him because they could not find fault with him. He was the one that killed the fathers of the Arabs who fought Imam Hussain. When Abu Abdullah al-Hussain asked just to give some hujjah, just to complete the hujjah on Yazid's army and people in general, he said, what have I done? Have I taken away or added to the prayers, to the psalms, to the siyam, to Ramadan, or the fasting, or the zakat, or anything other than that in the religion of Muhammad? They say no. Then he says, why are you fighting me? You know what they say? بغض لأبيك. They hated Imam Ali for his justice and his valor and his humanity and his humanism and his political sensitivities, his dealing justly with everybody, his values, moral, legal, political, humane, everything. They hated him for it. But Imam Hussain was not fighting for power, I should say. He was fighting to preserve the nature of the religion of Muhammad. There was a man sitting at the position as proclaimed Khalifatul Muslimin, and he was sitting on the mimbar playing with monkeys and animals, and he was saying that this whole thing was a sham by the Banu Hashim. There was no wahi or revelation. It was all fake. We heard the news, fake news. He was saying that the whole wahi of Muhammad was fake news. This was not inkar wahi, this was inkar Muhammad. Inkar falsafah nabuwat. And Imam Hussain says, a man like me can never do bay'ah of a man like Yazid. A man like me can never do bay'ah of a man like Yazid. Of course, he's Hussain ibn Ali. He is the most righteous of his time, of all time. He is the grandson of Rasulullah. Nobody can deny that. He is the one who loved the A'immah, who is the loved of the Anbiya and Awliya and the remaining all the A'immah of Ahlulbayt, by all of Ahlulbayt, obviously. He is Safinatul Najat. He is Misbah al-Huda of the tradition in al-Husayna. Misbah al-Huda was Safinatul Najat. Hussain is Hussein is the lantern of guidance and the ark of salvation. Hussein is that one. Hussein is the one who is embodiment of the principles of justice and humanity. Hussein is that one. Now, Imam Hussain was the one who chose where he would land. Last night I mentioned talking about the last moment of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in Medina. One of the traditions they say that Salama came to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and she says to him, "Oh Hussein, go wherever you want. I will not stop you, but just do one thing for me. Don't go to Iraq." She says, "Why, grandmother?" He says, "If Karbala has been written for me in my Shahadat Ahmed, then I must go to Iraq." She says, basically, he shows between his two fingers the whole incident of Karbala, the dead body of Al-Abbas, Ali Akbar, the headless bodies of the Shuhada. She sees the Maqtal of Imam Hussain, the Qatlgah of Imam Hussain. She sees Imam Hussain with all those arrows in his body and with all those wounds in his body, a headless corpse that was resting in Karbala. She says that Imam Hussain says, "This is my future," basically, and he gives some sand from Karbala. He says, "Unite this sand with the sand that my grandfather gave you, mix it, and know that when this sand turns red, like bloodshot red, that my shahadat has been done, that I've been shaheed. Know that." When Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, he leaves Medina, his intention is to go for Hajj, like I said before. But then he changes his decision to go to Kufa after hundreds of thousands of letters. Many dozens of letters were written to him saying, basically, Al-Ajal ya Imam. On the day of Arafat, Imam Hussain leaves for Kufa. He sends a representative called Muslim ibn Aqil to judge the situation in Kufa. Imam Hussain is intercepted by the forces of Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. There were 1,000 strong forces. Al-Hur stops him. Imam Hussain, they have dialogue, and Imam Hussain says something to Hur. He says, "May your mother lose you." You know what Hur says? Hur says, "If your mother was other than Fatima Zahra, I would have said something, but your mother is Fatima Zahra. Out of the respect of Zahra, I cannot say anything. I will never say anything." Imam Hussain wanted to awaken the dhamir of Hur, that my mother is Zahra and you are treating me like this. But of course the traditions say, not only that, but Imam Hussain, he had noticed that Hur's forces were thirsty. Hur's rides and the animals were thirsty. So Imam Hussain, he ordered his family members and those who were in his camp to give all the water to Hur's forces, to feed the hungry soldiers, to feed the thirsty soldiers and the animals, to the point where Imam Hussain had no more water left. When Abu Abdullah al-Hussain, he says he was intercepted. Abu Abdullah al-Hussain, they are wandering the desert and Hur is following behind Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. Now you know what happens? At one time, Zuljana's real name was Murtajiz. The reason why we call him Zuljanah means two wings. On the day of Ashura, there were so many arrows in Murtajiz's body that it looked like he has two wings. When Murtajiz, he was leading the way, he stopped at one point. Imam Hussain, he gathered the local people who were from the tribe of Banu al-Asad. He says to them, "What is this land?" They give a name, Nainawa. They give another name. Next time he asks, Al-Qama. He asked many times and they give him different names. And then they say, finally, this is Karbala. Imam Hussain says, "This is the land where I am to be martyred." Imam Hussain, then he buys a few area of land, and he says to the Banu Asad, they said, I give this land back to you. In a few days, me and my companions and my family members will be martyred here. Come and bury us here. When he says, in the Maqtal, the traditions, they narrate that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, when he reached Karbala and he bought that plot of land, he says to the men, come in the morning. He asked for the men to come in the morning. He says to them in the morning, in a few days' time, listen to me, listen, in a few days' time, me and my family members will be buried, will be martyred. When that happens, please, he's begging, he's Imam Hussain, and he's begging them, he's saying, please have the courage to come and perform our burial rites. Come and perform our burial rites. Then he says to them, in the Dhuhr time, in the noon time, invite all of your women. And the women come of the Banu Asad tribe. He says to them, in a few days' time, me and my family members and a few of my companions will all be murdered here. We'll all be martyred here. We'll all become shaheed here. If your husbands do not have it, what it takes within them to come bury us, force them to come and bury us. And then he says, in the night time, bring the children, little boys and little children. He says to them, listen, I talk to your fathers and your mothers, but if they don't have the courage to do it, when you are playing, take some sand and just throw it on our bodies to cover it with dirt so we can have somewhat of a semblance of a proper funeral. Now imagine what it feels like to be Ahlulbayt on the 11th of Muharram. A tribe, these bodies were not just normal bodies. These were the bodies of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the 11th of Muharram, when Imam Sajjad was being put in chains, when the Haram was being put in chains, after that incident, a few passers-by, they noticed that there were dead bodies here, but that, they were not given the image of dead bodies. Usually when somebody sees somebody who has left this world, they get frightened and scared. They see a pale body, a rotting body, they get frightened and scared. But these bodies were not rotten. These bodies were given off perfume. Pigeons and birds were giving them shadow. And it looked like that these bodies were the bodies of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These people who would go there from different tribes who were passing by, they would see that one time a tribe came and they told the Banu al-Asad, and the Banu al-Asad realized that a couple of days before the grandson of Rasulullah came, and he told us this, so they went to go bury. They created Ganj al-Shahida, which they buried the most of the bodies, but then for like Ali Akbar, they had a separate grave for Hani, for Al-Abbas, but they could not recognize whose bodies were whose. So by miracle, Imam Sajjad comes. And when they're about to bury Imam Hussain, he says, wait a second. He goes to a place where the burnt tents were located, to the back, and he picks up a body. He takes the body of the 6-month-old Ali al-Asghar, and he puts the body in the grave, saying, Father, what is this son of yours going to do alone in Karbala? Now he is to sleep forever on your chest. Inna lillah وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره مات من حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين.
Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived. Together hand in hand, the tear-filled cup we raise to paint the walls in grief for the coming nights and days. To paint the walls in grief for the coming nights and days. The walls cry out your name. Take our cloth, Ya Hussain. The walls cry out your name. Take our cloth, Ya Hussain. Your body was left bare when you were slain. Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived. How blessed are we all to cry over your pain. Our tears won't suffice if they poured more than rain. Our tears won't suffice if they poured more than rain. On that day our eyes will testify. The Shia cried day and night. On that day our eyes will testify. The Shia cried day and night. This is our duty of which we won't lose sight. Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived. What tragedies you saw on the day of Ashra. Your friends and family lay headless in noha. Your friends and family lay headless in noha. You were left all alone. At you they threw stones. You were left all alone. At you they threw stones. They refused the right path despite by you being shown. Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived. When we trip and fall, we use our hands for help. But one soldier of yours, on his face he fell. But one soldier of yours, on his face he fell. The arms from his body separated. Abbas in blood was decorated. The arms from his body separated. Abbas in blood was decorated. You witnessed his last breath as he departed. Muharram has arrived. Muharram has arrived. Muharram has arrived. Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived. Your princess looks into your tired and burdened eyes, as if she knew to you she would say her last goodbyes. As if she knew to you she would say her last goodbyes. Has that time come? She cried, when I see my father die. Has that time come? She cried, when I see my father die. Baba, please don't leave me. From Shimmer, where will I hide? Muharram has arrived. Muharram has arrived. Muharram has arrived. Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived. People will always be against mourning your death. These tears allow us to take take our next breath. These tears allow us to take our next breath. Whatever comes our way, on your path we will stay. Whatever comes our way, on your path we will stay. Hal min nas, our souls, they heard you say, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived, Muharram has arrived. Ya Hussain, in your grief we will reside. Muharram has arrived.
तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है, ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है, हर फूल ने सर्दी के इस्लाम को पाला है, ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है, ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है। अफ़सोस मुसलमानों आशूर के मक़तल में, अफ़सोस मुसलमानों आशूर को मक़तल में, कुरान के पारों को नेज़ों पे उछाला है, हर फूल ने सर्दी के इस्लाम को पाला है, ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है। ऐ मौत कभी तूने ज़ैनब से नहीं पूछा, ऐ मौत कभी तूने ज़ैनब से नहीं पूछा, 18 बरस कैसे इस शेर को पाला है, हर फूल ने सर्दी के इस्लाम को पाला है, ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है। बस क़ब्र ही ज़हरा की डूबी है अंधेरों में, बस क़ब्र ही ज़हरा की डूबी है अंधेरों में, हालांकि मदीने में हर सिमत उजाला है, हर फूल ने सर्दी के इस्लाम को पाला है, ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है। सरकारे मोहम्मद हो और सत्य हो के आखिर हो, सरकारे मोहम्मद हो और सत्य हो के आखिर हो, ज़हरा के चरागों से हर सिमत उजाला है, हर फूल